A lot of times what happens is we think we know about God, but we're not looking at the Bible to go, what's the truth about him? And I think that's the work we have to do every day. And I haven't arrived. Every day I have to wake up and say, when something goes wrong, God isn't against me. That's part of life. But this is an opportunity for me to grow my faith, to conquer what's in front of me.
So I have a question for you. Are you interested in God but turned off by what you see in organized religion? Oh, yeah. People around you and even your own emotions can lead you to assume negative things about God that really aren't true. That he does not care about your pain, that he's preoccupied with making you feel guilty, or that he wants a performance from you, more than he wants a relationship with you. Well, today's conversation is going to help us learn key steps that we can take to reimagine walking with God. Doesn't that just sound good?
It does.
Love it. You and I will discover Christianity the way it was meant to be, life-changing, innovative, and attractive. Love those words. So in the book that we're taking a look at, seen right here, He Is Not Who You Think He Is, minister and entrepreneur Russ Ewell invites you to discover a refreshingly original way of thinking about Christianity and the God of the Bible. Religious traditions, people around you, and even your own emotions can lead you to assume negative things about God that simply aren't true. That he does not care about your pain, and on and on. He wants your performance. Ooh, no, he wants a relationship, and that's what we're going to be talking about. Russ, welcome to Kenkel, Fritz and Friends, the podcast.
Thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Oh, it's so good to have you here. Well, fill us in just a bit on who you are to get us kicked off.
Okay. I'm the executive minister of the Bay Area Christian Church. I also run a little startup that creates software. I have two special needs kids, 3 kids total.
Okay.
And my third is adopted. We adopted her. Well, now she's 21, so that was a while ago.
See how
But
fast the years go by?
so we have a little bit going on there, and been married for 35 years, and my wife, she works with me, and she also does a lot of work in the community with education. But I've been living in Silicon Valley. We've been in the Bay Area Christian Church for 30 years. And the writing part of my life, which you made that book sound so good, I want to go buy it now.
It is that good and better.
I need that. But the writing part has been something that we kind of began working before the pandemic because in our church we created a digital team, and I lead that effort, and we do everything from video to on our Deep Spirituality website, content people can go and get, regardless of what their religious position is on Christianity or whatever. They can get all kinds of articles and studies and resources and video shorts, as well as we do a bunch of other stuff digitally. So, because we're in Silicon Valley, I've been here a long time, that's a big part of what we do. So, we're in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area.
Love that. Okay, so my opening question is, what is your church background? Did you grow up in church?
No. No. I grew up as, my dad, and my grandmother was a real person of faith, and she was incredible. And I was agnostic, and I bordered on being atheist. And so it was a interesting thing. My grandmother, when I'd spent the summers, I have 2 sisters, we'd spend the summers with her in Tennessee. And then she would make us all go to church when we were little. After I got to be about 7, though, I told my parents and everything. I was like, "No, I can't do this anymore." So I stopped being forced to go. Not forced, like intimidated. Just they were like, "Okay, we're all going." And then after that, I didn't go back and look at God at all until I was 19. Now I will tell you this: that when I was 12, my mom brought home a living Bible. and
Oh.
it's the old one. I may be so old no one knows about it, but it had the way on it. It had pictures on it, and I was a real reader when I was a kid, and so I was like, hey, can I read that? So I jumped into it, and I was like, oh, this is an interesting book, and I read Genesis, and then I got a little struggle when I got to Exodus, and they were doing all the laws, and I never read any more. So it wasn't until 19 that I was in college that I actually started looking at God seriously, and it was the first time I ever read the New Testament when I was 19.
I love that. We have a real similarity there that I was taken to church. I remember specifically telling my mom, I don't want to be told what to pray, when to pray, and how to pray. And she very wisely said, well, just stand here beside me. But it wasn't until college that it all came together when somebody very brave, my best girlfriend, said, would you like to go to church? I think she was thinking because you really need it. And there I met Jesus as my Savior and as the personhood that God made him. And wow, what a difference. Let's
Yeah.
do a little identification of some words. Agnostic. We may not all know what that means. You mentioned that you were agnostic.
Yeah. So, and it's an interesting thing because we're seeing a decline in church attendance, and we're seeing the rise in the category of nuns. And so I would have landed in that category of none
Interesting.
of the above, because agnostics believe that there's something. And God is, maybe he's there, maybe he's not. There's definitely something bigger than people, whereas atheists are like, no, there's nothing there, right?
Okay.
And so that's where I was at.
Okay.
And that hopefully that helps people understand.
Okay, good. Thanks.
Now, you open the book with a story of Charlie. If you would share a little bit about Charlie with us.
Yeah. So it's an interesting story because when my oldest son has Down syndrome, when he was coming to the point where he could, like start studying the Bible and make a decision to be a Christian, I looked around at all his friends, and I was like, and he had, typical neurotypical friends. And I was like, if these guys don't decide to be Christians, then my son might decide not to become a Christian, so I better do something. And so I started a little group called Double Edge, and I invited all these kids to be a part of it. There were about 7 or 8 in all. And I began, and they were generally not really interested. And I began to do a bunch of different stuff with them to get them talking, get them open, get them understanding some of the things we talk about in the book there about emotions and life. And so one of them was Charlie. And his dad called me, and the reason I invited him, his dad called me and said, I'm studying the Bible with him every day. I'm doing everything I can, but this kid just won't get it. He doesn't listen. And I said, he said, I need your help. And it was a real good friend of mine. And I said, well, okay. And he knew I had a background of working with teenagers from way back before I was married and anything. And I said, okay, well, first of all, I need you to get out of there and stop doing that. That's not helping
Wow.
us right there. I said, I know you're genuine and authentic and sincere, but it's absolutely not helping. This is not the way. And I said, I'll take over and you stay out of it. You be his dad and leave the rest to me. And so that's when I put together Double Edge. And so Charlie, it took a while because he started to. So he played a lot of video games, and at first the teen workers in our church were like, "Hey, he doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to listen, and he's not interested at all." He told us, "I don't want to hear the Bible. I don't want you to talk to me about it." And I said, "But he plays this video game, right? And it's called World of Warcraft." And I said, "Well, we're gonna have to play that game." And they were like, well, that game's too expensive. I said, yeah, well, this is what you do. We're going to have to buy the game and play it. So I took it and I started learning how to play it. We all started playing it. And I said, now we're playing it. Every time you sit next to him, just say, oh, this reminds me of a scripture, and just read it to him while you're playing the game. And I said, and we'll just do it that. It's just, you got to go slow and just work it in. And eventually he started studying the Bible and looking at what God had to say and learning more about Jesus. But there was a block. He just wasn't, able to get over the hump. And so I remembered that one of his best friends had died young at 16. And his best friend was a Christian and really awesome kid. But he had some pre-existing conditions that he was fighting. And I said to him one day, I said, does this have anything to do with Michael passing away? And he goes, what do you mean? I said, do you have any feelings about God toward that? He goes, yeah, I've been prayed and I begged God that he wouldn't die. And then God let him die. So I don't believe God's there. And once we got over that hump and I started talking about a lot of things that are in the book, that you've got a wrong view of God, and this is not what God does. He didn't do that to him. And I started to explain to him that Ecclesiastes, there's time and chance. And it was through that he made a breakthrough. And believe it or not, when he made his breakthrough, it caused a couple other kids to make their breakthrough. And it ended up being that all 7 kids ended up becoming Christians and still are. And all married now because they're all older.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. You know, the power of a life to change another's life. We were just talking about that on the radio today.
Yeah.
The power that we have, and sometimes we miss that opportunity. So that's a beautiful description of that. There's another story that touched me and really has to do with something we mentioned in the open about some people just see God as unattractive, just like, yeah, maybe good for you, but not for me. And you kind of addressed that through another friend named Jeff. Tell us Jeff's story.
Oh, Jeff, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Well,
Jeff.
Jeff and I became friends in middle school.
Oh,
And so we both played basketball, and we were on the basketball team. He was a better athlete than me. He was tremendous. Ended up being a baseball pitcher, played football, played 3 sports, one of those kids.
wow.
But he was just an awesome guy. And I used to, I'm just going to give a little background that I don't even think I put in the book. He and I hung out all the time, and I was able to talk to him about stuff that, I didn't talk to other people about. And so we were seniors in high school, and Jeff was part of Young Life.
Yes.
And there was a guy who ran Young Life, and they were in our school. I went to a public school, but they had a Young Life group as like one of the clubs. And I stayed as far away from that club as I could. I knew everybody in it, but I was like, I was a total like, I am totally not interested. I've got goals. I'm going to achieve these goals. They have nothing to do with anything you're doing. And I basically, people talk about Christians judging people. Well, I was not a Christian, and I was judging them to the hilt. So, which is nobody ever discusses that Christians get judged.
Yeah.
But then one day I was walking down the hall, and he goes, "Hey, I want to ask you a question." And I said, "What?" And he said, "I want you to consider if I get a visitor to Young Life tonight. It's on Wednesday night. I can win $20 if I bring a visitor." And he actually said we can. He said we can win $20 if we get a visitor. And I said, $20, and this is at a time when $20 would go. Yeah, it was good
This
money.
is the price of your soul here.
And I'm going, I could use that for my gas in my car. My parents gave me a car, and they'd give me gas, but I drove more than the money they gave me. So I was like, this sounds good. And so, but I don't go into this in the book all the way, but I was like, I don't know, man. I got to go see that guy, and I saw the guy who ran it, and this is not disparaging of him. He's actually a great guy, but I saw the guy who ran it as just that typical religious, like for me, if you've ever seen the television show The Middle, there's a guy in there, a character called Reverend Tim Tom, and he like plays the guitar, and I was like, nah, I can't have that. And then Jeff was like, nah, but $20, man, we could get. And I said, okay, I'll go. And he was such a good friend of mine that I went pretty much because of that, even as much as the money. But the money was a big deal.
Yeah,
and so,
yeah.
he got me to go on in there. I went, and I remember going. It was downstairs in the basement, one of my friend's house, and I went down there, and I could tell everybody was surprised I was there. And so I got on in, and they did their different stuff. I can't remember all of it. I remember there was some guitar playing. There may have been a scripture read. And at the end of it, I was ready to, at the end of it, it's okay, now we're going to, give the, see who wins. Jeff was the only one who brought a visitor. So he automatically won the money.
There
And
you
so
go.
he took the 20, and I don't go into detail on this. He took the $20 bill, and I'm sitting right there. I go, wait a minute. I said, and he and I had a little conversation about how I needed to get half of that.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah. So
Oh,
afterwards, and of course, now that I've been in the ministry for a long time, I've experienced this. Afterwards, the leader of the group came over to me, and he knew me because he'd come to every sporting event, basketball games I played, and he was always in the stands talking to kids. And anytime he would go to a part of the stands, I would leave and go to another part because I was afraid he's going to talk to me. Anyway, he came and talked to me. He said, "Hey, how'd you like it?" And I was like, "Oh, this is awesome. It's incredible. I didn't know it was so good." I never went back. I was like, I'm out of here, man. So I got my $10 and I said thank you, and then I went away. That's what made God attractive. But underneath it, which I didn't fully realize then, was Jeff's impact on me. And the fact that no one had ever been able to get me to do anything like it. And even though it wasn't my cup of tea at the moment, certainly on the surface, it made an impact on me, which later on, when I was invited to a Bible study, I think that was sort of a setup. And I think God does that. And I think that's why we shouldn't get impatient with our friends or frustrated with our friends, because there's a whole lot more going on inside of us than everybody knows. Yeah. But Jeff's life, his friendship, the relationship made a huge impact on me, and he got me to Young Life, and ultimately, at the end of the day, opened the door that allowed me to go through it and say, yep, Jesus is that guy.
We are twinsies. This is just really remarkable because I, too, in high school, my BC days, I was invited to Young Life, and I was just like, yeah, yes, Wednesday night, the guitar, all the kids going, ooh, and I was just like, what? No. And my friend drove me home and was a guy, a really sweet guy who just was after my soul. And he said, "What'd you think?" And I said, "Never again."
Oh my goodness.
And so there's this whole BC life that people who see me now on social media, they're like, who are you and where did that kid go that I remember back in high school? And but yes, the seed was planted, and my girlfriend was there that night, and she also saw me never come back. But she's the one who was brave enough a couple years later at the college dormitory saying, "Hey, would you like to go to Bible study?"
Oh,
and I give
really?
her all the credit in the world because she had every reason to be terrified that I would just laugh in her face. Instead, I was like, "Sure." But, God had a time for me. And so I'm just rejoicing in your story of Jeff and my story of Lori. Thank you,
Yes.
Lord, for the Jeffs and Loris who don't give up on us.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
100%.
You mentioned this earlier. We're just kind of talking about statistics. So currently, like the latest that I read, something like, 83% of us think that there's a spirit or a soul or something in there. Maybe you don't even know how to define it. About 3/4 of us believe in heaven, which is still, all of that's a lot of people, there's still a lot of people on the opposite side of that too. So as those of us who have experienced the love and the grace and the mercy of the God that we serve, how on earth do we speak into those that aren't on the same side of things that we are?
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Sally and I are the criminal element in life. And some people are
If you only knew.
I didn't add, I think I got to check my ancestry.com because I think Sally's in there
I
somewhere.
know. I'm like, wow.
We're related or something. But I was voted most likely to be recruited by the mafia my senior year. So
I don't have
where
that one on my
stand.
list.
Wow.
And when my coach, I came back to high school. I mean, I came back to visit the team, and when he saw me, he came running out of his office. He goes, "Wait a minute, hold on. I heard something about you. It cannot be true. It cannot be true." I said, "Well, what are you talking about?" He said, "I heard you're a minister." I go, "Yeah, I am." He goes, "But that takes dedication."
Oh. Snap. My goodness.
Wow.
But going back to answer your question, I put that as context. Yeah, Missy, you're really right. If you look particularly at Pew Research, they've covered extensively the spirituality is the thing people are seeking, and that I argue that yes, there's a decline in church attendance, but the spirituality of our community in America is still the same. And I think a lot of people, if they are asked to check a box, they check a box Christian. That doesn't mean they're going to go to church. It doesn't mean they're going to read the Bible, but it also doesn't mean they've shut it out completely. And as you said, when someone, and this is I think you got your statistic right. I remember that one. When someone is saying, "I believe in the spiritual world," or "I believe in heaven," they're saying, "I believe that there is something there that's tangible and real, but I don't connect it to the church." And one of the things we do in the Bay Area Christian Church, and one of the reasons I wrote the book, He's Not Who You Think He is because our focus is really on reaching people that do not see church as something they want to be a part of. We just had our Shoreline Amphitheater holds about 15,000, and we just had a service there. Our whole congregation, we have 8 different services, but this year we're meeting twice together, and we had over 6,000 people there. And when we had the people there, the message I delivered was designed around speaking to people who are religious nuns. And I broke down church and said, there's cultural Christianity, traditional Christianity. There's and a lot of times we don't feel like we're part of the cultural Christianity where we're gonna get involved in culture wars or battles. We don't feel like we're in part of traditional Christianity, which is kind of like it's my social group and friends. I'm not really in that. And then there's theological versions where a lot of times people go to church and they're like, I'm talking about religious nuns, people you're referring to. They go to church, they don't really want to know whether it's Greek or it's Aramaic or it's Hebrew, and they don't want to know where things are at. They're trying to hold their marriage together, or they're trying to get their kid to not be on drugs, or they're trying to figure out how to make it financially. And so our position is we're trying to be a biblical church, and that's a church where you're going to learn about God and you're going to learn who He is. And we make our primary focus connected with that. Our primary focus is making God known and doing good. And so when you ask about, how do you impact people who are religious nuns or who don't know exactly what they think, I think we've got to do what Jesus did. And He said, let's be a light. Let's make the light seen by the good deeds we do. And sometimes that we don't understand this. We have all kinds of things we do in the community. This past year, we had an Easter egg hunt that was an inclusive Easter egg hunt for including special needs kids in the Easter egg hunt. We had like 8 of them. And we did it before church and said anyone could come. Here in Silicon Valley, where I'm at, we had people who are Hindu come to it, people who are Buddhist come to it, people who are atheists, because they said they wanted their kid to have that cultural experience of Easter, going and getting the eggs.
Praise
They
God.
didn't believe in God and all that, but it's doing good like that. Our eLife program is all-inclusive sports where special needs kids are with neurotypical kids, and they combine in sports. They're not separate. They do it together. And we have e-soccer, e-hoops, e-gardening, e-photography, all these things.
Wow.
And so we do them because it's doing good in the community. And we speak clearly, and we have it on our site. These are things we do for anyone. It doesn't matter to us whether you're Muslim. It doesn't matter to us whether you're a Taoist, whatever it may be. We want to do good. And what we find is when we do good and people see that, that's how people find us who aren't even, or find God who aren't even looking for Him. And so that's one of the primary ways I think we reach people is they see what we're doing. I watched you guys, by the way. I don't know if it's one of your commercial type things or whatever. I saw you guys dancing. You were having a pretty good time. Yeah, I saw that, and I was hoping I would be able to get, But when people see that Christians are, I hate to say it, normal. I'm not talking about, I know Christians are normal, but a lot of people don't think we are.
Right.
And so those are the kind of things I think that relate to people, and they go, you know what, I can listen to that person. I can hear that. So those are some of the ways we think about it here in the Bay Area Christian Church.
Love it.
I think you said something about just doing good draws people not only to the church but to Jesus. And I saw the most simple statement recently, but I was like, I don't guess I've ever thought about it this way. But when we love, period, when we love, we are the most like Jesus. That's what He did.
Yep.
And so just loving on people, I think sometimes we overcomplicate what we need to do. And I mean, honestly, just reaching out in love is a huge statement.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree with you more. And when I became a Christian, love was the hard part. Because it was all pretty hard, but I remember going, I don't know if love even works.
Yeah.
Because that's where I was like, selfish ambition works. That was my thing, was ambition, goals, achieve. And then when you learn about love and compassion and empathy, and that's one of the great things about our eLife program, special needs kids with neurotypical kids. We tell people when you get your kid involved educationally in school, in programs with special needs kids, it will develop your child or your adolescent, whatever stage they're at. It will develop their empathy. It will develop their compassion, their ability to understand people. And I think the world needs that. But sometimes people don't understand developing character is not always from a book or a training program. And our kids are involved, and they're not all kids in the church. We have high schools and teams, I can talk more about it later, that get involved because they see how transformative it is. And that's what you're talking about, Misty, is that love. But I know as a man, when I was growing up, I saw that as weakness, being emotional, being weakness. And so, understanding its power. And I couldn't agree more that the more we love, the more people can see the truth of what Jesus was like. And then they might be interested in what we have to say because they can see how much we care.
I remember when I spent my 20s when I was walking with Jesus in the club. And when I went to Christian radio, a lot of my friends that lead very different lifestyles from me just assumed she's not going to want anything to do with me anymore. Like, she's judging me hardcore and didn't really have a lot to do with me. And I was able to, we're based out of Tucson, Arizona, and one of my friends lives not far away. I hadn't seen him since my 20s, and we were able to get together. And he was one of the ones that dropped off for quite a while before he kind of reemerged. And it's like, oh, let's get together for lunch. And he said, you're still the same. Like, you still love me. And I was like, well, what did you think? Like, of course. And he said, well, I appreciate you loving me even if you find it difficult with what you believe. And I said, loving you is not a difficult thing to do.
Wow.
And it really opened my eyes to maybe the perception on the other side of things. Because I'm not like you, it's hard to love me. And that's kind of heartbreaking, but also let me know what I need to communicate to people as well.
Yeah.
What's interesting about that, you should have been around when I first became a Christian because I needed someone to say that. A lot of the people that I was around, it was all about, help people become Christians, but there wasn't enough, like I had a number of friends that I think they thought I didn't want to have anything to do with them because I made that decision. And it was a little difficult for me to navigate because it was a real radical change in my life and my priorities and my time. And so it was confusing. And again, part of the reason I wrote the book, He's Not Who You Think He is because those friends of mine, if I knew, you always look back, if I knew what I knew today, I would have been so much more capable of helping them bridge the transition I made. And fortunately, I figured it out and over time, but initially it was really difficult. And so I love what you're saying there. And I hope all your listeners can take that in and be encouraged by it because people do want to be loved, and they want to. I think it's just hard for someone to not think, hey, you've changed your view of life, your worldview maybe, or whatever, so maybe you don't want to have anything to do with me. And it's something we try to teach in our church to make sure, don't cut people off or don't make them feel like they're being cut off. So that's outstanding.
As you were speaking, something just hit me. The fact that they think Christians are going to find it difficult to love them is probably translating in their mind as what they feel Jesus may have a difficult time loving them because I'm not the perfect picture Christian.
Wow.
That was a mind blown moment that you just gave me.
If they could only understand that we would be the first one to say, neither am I.
Same. Yeah, exactly.
Trying here. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Wow, this is awesome. Whether you grew up in a church or have never set foot in one, Russ's unique blend of insights from over 35 years of ministry work and his extensive knowledge of the Bible will guide us all to build a personally satisfying and intimate relationship with God. His book, He Is Not Who You Think He is already changing my life as well, and I cannot encourage you enough. What a pleasant read it is. So thank you so much for doing this. We have so much more to talk about. I'm going to ask you to define one more word because when I first heard it a couple of years ago, I thought, why are we talking about N-U-Ns or are we talking about N-O-Ns? And I think a little clarification here might be in order. Tell us about the nuns.
Oh, that's excellent. I forget
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, me too. Me
I'm
too.
not gonna lie. When you first said that, I saw Maria from Sound of
Yeah.
Music. Yep. How do you solve a problem like Maria? Yep.
Maria. Yeah.
Okay, I got you right there. I like that. You know, um, well, religious nuns is a term obviously that none of us use on an everyday basis. But what they tried to do in analyzing what's going on in the world regarding religion, and one of the foremost, I think, thinkers on this is Ryan Burge, who's written a lot about it, is people who are now the one of the fast until a couple of years ago the fastest growing category of Christian, or I'm sorry, category of religious believer in America, was those who looked at all the denominations that were Christian, looked at all the religions, and said, I'll check none of the above. So nuns, NONES, is meant to be none of the above. Now, it doesn't automatically mean they don't believe in Jesus. We don't know all that about these folks necessarily, but they just don't want to have anything to do with organized religion, and that's a group that I started paying attention to. I think as soon as it came out, might have been a decade ago, and started to guide our church to think about that category of person, because I related to it, as Sally and I've been talking about. I related to it and went, wait a
Right.
minute, that's me. So yeah, that's who the nuns are.
Okay, good. I just thought, you know what? We Christians can have our own little language going on, and I think that was just an instance of that. Well, one of the reasons I was really attracted to your story was that it's so similar to mine, but also that you mentioned a little earlier in our discussion that you're the father of children with special needs. And you tell something that now is not surprising me about you, but so impactful about even the first words you heard the doctor utter when your son was born.
Yeah, it one of the profound moments in my life. We did not know that our son was going to be born with Down syndrome. We had no idea in the
Wow.
whole process, and all the ultrasounds and all that. So we actually found out in the delivery room.
Oh my
So
goodness.
and it was an on-call pediatrician. It wasn't our doctor, and so she looked up. I remember she looked up at me and said, "Now you have a Down syndrome child." And I could tell by my wife's look on her face that she knew what it was. I didn't even know what that was. So I was like, what? And so it was a jolt right there. Fortunately for us, the head of genetics at Washington, D.C. Children's Hospital lived in Alexandria, Virginia, which is where we were living in Virginia at the time, in D.C. pretty much. And he decided, I remember he came there, and because I think they told him, we got a father out here who doesn't know what's going on. He came on down. And he said, I don't normally do this, but I was eating dinner with my family. I said, I think I'm going to take this one. And so he came on down, and he talked to me, and he looked at me, and he said, now, I'm going to help you understand about your son, but the first thing I need to tell you is you have a son who happens to have Down syndrome. And that statement framed for me how to think about special needs. And so from that moment on, I saw my son as, that's my son, that's it. And now I have Down syndrome, and I got to learn about that. And we had a great conversation, and he followed my son all the way through the early stages to get us set. But yeah, it framed for me that I will be a parent of my son, and the Down syndrome is something we'll work on or figure out or explore. And one of my friends told me about our life, my wife's and my life. She said to us, a friend of ours, she said, I see James 1 where it says, consider it pure joy when you suffer trials of many kinds. She said, I look at you guys and I think the joy is discovering the solutions and the innovations necessary to help your sons, really do well in life. And so I think the doctor set me up for that mindset.
So beautiful and so relatable and personal to us as part of the Kenkel Fritz and Friends team here. We know that our leader in charge is Mike Kenkel Fritz, and his daughter Abby Grace just recently special needs, and how they cared for her as their daughter, and the pride in who she was and all of her accomplishments. And it's just been a real blessing to be a part of that and to be included in their life and Abby's life as well. And now we have the huge challenge to say goodbye for now to Abby. And wow, it's been a huge challenge because there's just a special love, and watching Mike and Becky love Abby has been a huge blessing, and I know she'll be a part of all of us for the rest of our lives. So we're grateful, as I can tell you are grateful for your sons and who they are and raising them up. And if we still have time, I'm going to give you the opportunity to talk about some of the technology that you've developed for non-communicative children, because that was Abby as well. But Misty, I'll turn it over to you.
Just real quick, turning negative or unhealthy thoughts into healthy thoughts, which I think is a skill we all need, especially in this world. And you have 4 steps, which I love. I was hoping you would talk about that just a little bit, because once those unhealthy thoughts take root, if you don't have the skills to transform them into something a lot healthier, it can really just send you on kind of a downward spiral.
Yeah, I'm going to connect. I'm going to try to connect what Sally was talking about, and I know with what you're talking about healthy and unhealthy thoughts, because I was able. Obviously, I'm not there, but I'm able to watch from a distance. And one of the things that struck me about the Kankelfridge family is that you could feel it was an inclusive family. What I mean by that they were sharing Abby's life with other people, and that the people around them embraced her. And when you have that kind of inclusion, it's powerful. And so I certainly mourn their loss, but and at the same time, I want to say from out here in the Bay Area, you can feel the power of what they were doing. And I read a little bit, and I could see the way Mike talked about his daughter. I felt like I know that. I know that guy. I know him because the love they had for her, it radiated to obviously you guys and other people.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons for that, I think, is being able to have a healthy view of God. Because I'll never forget walking across the street with a friend of mine in New York City, and he said to me, and my son Jonathan had just been born. He said, he goes, you must be feeling a lot about it. You're probably down. And I turned and I looked at him and I go, no, why should I be down? I don't understand. I was like, why do you assume I'm going to be down? And the reason is I did not see God as doing something bad. I feel that we have to all accept time and chance, but I also think we have to all see opportunities. And so when you talk about the unhealthy and healthy thoughts, I think a lot of people, and I've worked with tons of people over the years, that they have feelings and thoughts about God based on experiences that they've had, whether it's they feel like they've been punished by God for going back to the story about Charlie. They feel they've been disappointed by God and let down by God, and he doesn't care about them because he's hurting them. And so a lot of times there's these thought processes that we embrace because of the experiences we have, and they're generally negative experiences, and then we project those onto God. Maybe someone out there says, oh, that storm happened to your house because, what did you do wrong? And sometimes with special needs families, people will say or think, well, what did you do wrong that you had a special needs kid, that something was wrong with them? Or what did you do wrong that your child had this problem with drugs or with drinking or is in jail, whatever it may be. And so people begin to embrace these things in their thoughts, and they think, yeah, that's right, God made this happen to me. And so a lot of getting healthy thoughts about God is understanding the truth of Scripture. And this is where I try to emphasize to people, we've got to stay in the Bible. I'm a minister, and I've been doing it for a long time. But I don't think people should focus on what I say or what I think. I think they got to make sure they get in the Bible and find out the truth of who God is. And there's a real battle, because even in society today, there's a lot of diminishing and there can be negativity about Christianity, and God can be cast in a light as people if someone tries to prove, well, God doesn't exist because look at what has happened here. Would a good God let that happen? And none of that involves Scripture, and none of that is based on truth. It's just based on the conjectures they have based on experiences. So I try to work hard in the book to help people understand, hey, we got to get rid of these unhealthy and wrong thoughts about God. I think it's in Job 42. God says in one of the translations that the friends of Job have taught about him incorrectly. And I think it's in the Bible a fair amount. and it was Mark 12:24. He says, you're in error because you do not know the scriptures or the power of God. And so a lot of times what happens is we think we know about God, but we're not looking at the Bible to go, what's the truth about him? And I think that's the work we have to do every day. And I haven't arrived. Every day I have to wake up and say, when something goes wrong, God isn't against me. That's part of life. But this is an opportunity for me to grow my faith, to conquer what's in front of me. So I hope that helps explain a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, it's impactful. In chapter 3, you share a powerful story that just really amazed me, and I really hadn't thought about it. But you shared how liberating it was to overcome feeling different. Don't we all, for one degree or another, feel like one of these things is not like the other? But you had a really very obvious situation. So take us back to those early years and how we can develop our own personal relationship with God that goes beyond I feel different.
Well, that story spans so much of my life, and I have to go back to my parents really to frame that correctly. Because when I was growing up in the I grew up in the 70s, pretty much. But my parents, they were, I don't think I write about this in the book, but they sat me down and said, look, there's a lot of preconceived notions about what a black person's like. And they said to me, "You're not going to fulfill any of those negative stereotypes." So this is how
Good on
you're gonna.
them.
My mom, I'm embarrassed to say it, but my mom dressed me until I was a junior in high school. She took me, she would not let me wear jeans. I mean, it all because she was like, you have to be seen a certain way.
Wow.
Well, the reason I put that in context is the first time, and I think this is the story you're referring to, at least the one that comes to my mind. The first time I experienced being different in a significant way, I was 7 and I was in second grade. And
That's it.
I previous to that, I'd been going to a school that was called Little School, and it was pretty much all African American or all black school. And I went there for a couple of years, and then my parents they were successful and were doing better, and so we moved to a better part of the community. And when we did, the school there was pretty much, they were all white kids, which, believe it or not, that didn't faze me or anything. I didn't think anything about that. I had a good time. But I remember, I'll never forget it. I can still see the math book in front of me. And we were all told, the teacher said, hey, everybody write their last name on the front of the book so that you can identify this is your book. And so you had to write it on a piece of paper first. So she didn't want you to make a mistake, which made sense. So I wrote Ewell to spell my name, and she went around and checked everybody to make sure they had the right name. And she got to mine, and she goes, "No, you spelled it wrong." And I said, "No, that's how you spell my name. It's Ewell." She goes, "No, you're spelling it wrong. It's Elwell, Elwell." I go, "My name's not Elwell. My name's Ewell. It's Ewell." She goes, "Your name is Elwell, Elwell. Write that on the book." And so,
wow.
I'm 7 years old, and I'm figuring not a good move to not do what she says, so I write it on the book. Well, my mom's a teacher, and my mom taught at a different school, and so I went home with my book, and I brought it in, and my mom was looking at it. She goes, "What is this?" And I go, "What?" "It's my math book." She goes, "What is this on here?" And I said, "Oh, my teacher said that I was spelling my name wrong, and I spelled it this way." And my mom said, "What?" She grabbed the book and basically took off, left, and went to the school. And I was like,
love your
"Oh,
mom.
yeah.
You
Oh,
go, Mom.
my mom's definitely serious business." My mom's turning 90 in August. So
Oh,
she's,
wow.
yeah. But anyway, she went down there, and the teacher also was giving me all C's. And I had not had those kind of grades before. So she went down there, and she came back with a new book with my name written correctly. And she said, I had a talk with that lady. She said, "I don't know what's wrong with that lady, but I told her, you never again did." She never didn't do this, because what she said to my mom was, "Those are good grades for kids like these." And
Oh.
and my mom said, "Kids like these." And after that, the lady sent the book home and never treated me that way again. And my grades went to what they had normally been, which I did pretty well. But during that time, I really got an impression of in life, and this is one of the things that I think is awesome about being a Christian. In life, you have to have an internal security that comes from God that allows you to weather the storms of when people treat you in a way that makes you feel less or makes you feel like an outsider. And I know for a lot of people that are younger, loneliness is increasing in the world. Social media. I listened to your Max Lucado episode, and what was incredible in there, he talks about what I think about social media, and that is that it can lead you to live a comparison life. And a lot of kids are getting discouraged because they're being made to feel differently in a bad way. Why aren't you achieving these things? Why aren't you able to buy these things? And I think it's real important that people get a relationship with God, because God settles on the inside. And I just taught a leadership class to people under the age of 22, between the ages of 19 and 22. And I told them, you've got to get to a place in your life where you're comfortable with who you are and you're okay with who you are, and you don't need to be jealous or feel less because someone's better at something to you, because everybody has their unique gifts. And a lot of being able to be okay with being different is getting a relationship with God where you're able to say, He made me uniquely who I need to be, and that's a good thing, and I'm going to, ride that through life, and my life's going to turn out great. And I think that's a very powerful thing if we get our view of God on straight.
Preach it. Amen.
I love that.
I love that. Yes, exactly.
And I love your mom.
I
That's
know.
incredible.
Go mom. Go mom.
And
You'll enjoy listening to this.
Sally referenced it earlier. I know our time's coming to a close, but I did want to go back to the technology for nonverbal children.
Yes.
If you would go into that a little bit, because that's pretty incredible.
Yeah, we started a company, me and some of my friends. I went to them and said, hey, there's software being, this is years ago, probably 10, when the iPhone and iPads, they were coming out with some software for kids who have communication challenges, and adults, but it was primarily aimed at kids with autism, which my other son has that autism and has communication challenges. But when I actually bought the software, and I believe it was about $30 to $50 somewhere in there. But within about 2 or 3 months, as people began to get it, they raised the price to $300.
Ooh.
And I was like, wait a second, what's this all about? And I didn't need it because I actually had bought 2 copies of it, so I was good, and at the lower price. But then I started thinking about what parents go through, and the justification for the price hike was that typically a lot of these communication devices that are hardware that kids like that would use would be about $15,000 or $10,000. And we actually had to go into debt to buy one of those for our son initially. But then when the iPads came out, we found the software, so we went, this is cheaper and more mobile. So long story made short now, I told my friends, I go, we can't let this happen to people. There are people who are poor who just buying an iPad is hard. And there are people who are middle class buying an iPad is hard. So these are communities that I'm around, and I don't like it. So what we did is we created software that could do the same thing that software did, and we didn't all have our PhDs in education or speech. We just utilized what speech pathologists told us, and we took the tools that we knew how to use in coding and created software called QuickTalk by Digital Scribbler, and we got it out the gate at, I believe, first we sold it on to Android devices for $1.99, and then when we got it launched and everything, we got it at $14 per person, and then we added a bunch of stuff and got it to 21, with our goal being that we don't make money off of it. We do other things to make money. We just put it out there so that we cover a little bit of the costs. None of the engineers get paid by it, and just to provide it for families so that they don't have to spend so much money when there's so many more expenses they have, whether it be medical, therapies like speech pathology or occupational therapy, or just getting them into a private school situation if needed. So that was the effort. And because we're in Silicon Valley, that's the way we think. And a lot of companies had helped us promote it, helped us get it out there, like Google. I presented at Facebook. And so, that's how we do it, and that's what we did.
That is beautiful.
It is.
Love it. Oh, so much more we could spend with you. But one more question. What
Sure.
brings you joy?
Wow. I'll tell you what brings me joy is, now this is not making this up, it's my family. Anytime we make an advance in the kids' lives and they're able to have successes, whether it's when Jonathan was small and he went into therapy, physical therapy to make sure he crawled on time. When I brought home the first devices and they were able to experience touch communication. When my wife can feel relief that the boys are going to be okay long term in the future, those are the things that make me excited. And God changed me from ambition for self to a satisfaction and a joy about being able to be married, which my mom says, I never thought you'd be married this long or you'd be this good of a dad. And I was like, well, God makes a big difference in someone's life. So
Amen.
that's what
Yes.
brings me joy.
Oh, that is so beautiful. Well, we have been discussing Russ Ewell's updated book, He Is Not Who You Think He Is, Dropping Your Assumptions and Discovering God for Yourself, with a unique blend of insights from over 35 years of spiritual counseling and extensive knowledge of the Bible and living the real life along with us. Our guest, Russ Ewell, is offering hope to anyone who is curious, confused, or has grown cynical about organized religion and the God it represents. Russ is the executive minister of a large and growing church in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's also a husband and a father of 3 and an entrepreneur, as we just heard. So thank you so much for your time. And Russ, you have to tell us, where can we find you?
You can find, did you say where can you find the book?
You and the book.
Oh, you can find me. The easiest way to find me is at either the BACC.cc, the Bay Area Christians website, or my own website, russewell.com. And you can find all the different stuff I do. And obviously the book's on sale. It's an audio book, it's a print book, and it's an ebook. You can get it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Ewell, not Elwell.
That's right. Yes, Misty. There you go.
And I love for people like me, you've included the drawings.
Yes.
So thank you.
Oh yeah. There's all kinds of codes you can use your phone for to get music, scripture playlist, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's my digital team. The digital team here, they came up with that. Everybody on the team, I'm the old guy. They're all millennials or Gen Z.
We love our millennials and Gen Zs. I can't even talk anymore. Hey, what a true joy it has been to spend this time with you. Thank you. I only wish Mike had been here, but we're trusting God for that. And I know he'll hear our discussion. So thank you for taking the time out for us. Thank you for writing this book for me, for my family members who think they don't want to be involved with God. I'm going to shut this their way. Love you already. Thanks for this time.
Thank you. You guys are awesome.
Oh, okay.
We'll take it.
So much fun.
Bye.
So much fun.
Oh, see, that brings us joy.
Yes.
We want to be fun.